This is the International Writers Tag, which I was tagged in by the original creator, Marine Lhod. Probably a horrible pronunciation, but you'll find the link down in the description. Question number 1. Where are you from and what is your native language or languages? I am from Sweden, born and raised, and my native language is Swedish. Question number 2. What language do you write in? I write in both English and Swedish. Different stories call for different languages to me, and sometimes I have specifically the Swedish audience in mind, for example, and then I will, of course, write the story in Swedish. Some stories I actually go so far as to write sometimes in English and sometimes in Swedish, which makes things a little bit difficult in revision when I need to decide which language is actually going to be the one that this story is written in. But yeah. Question number 3 is, does authortube exist in your native language, and if so, what's it like? As far as I know, there is no Swedish language authortube. I have found a few people who talk writing on YouTube in Swedish, but there is no community as such, at least not what I've been able to find, and I've only found like 2 or 3 people maybe that put up videos with any kind of regularity. Question number 4, if there is an authortube community in your native language, why did you decide to join the international one? And well, I found the international authortube long before I found anyone speaking about writing in Swedish on YouTube, so obviously that's where I ended up. Also, the international authortube community is very, very big. There are a lot of people to interact with, and yeah, that's why I ended up here. Question number 5. Are there any struggles or challenges for you as a non-native English speaker? On authortube, I'd say no, not really. I'm very comfortable with English. I use English on a daily basis, and I'm almost as comfortable with English as I am with Swedish. There are some subjects, there are actually a bunch of subjects where I don't feel qualified speaking English about them. Food and cooking is one of them. I could not discuss food and cooking in English because I don't have the vocabulary for it, so good thing I rarely have a reason to do that. On occasion, in writing, the same kind of thing gets a little bit tricky if I'm writing about a subject that I don't really have the vocabulary for in English. For example, I write a lot of my stories take place on the ocean, so I need to write about ships, and I would have no trouble whatsoever writing about ships in Swedish, but I don't have the vocabulary for it in English, so it becomes very difficult when I'm going to write something in that sort of environment in a story that I've decided to write in English. So, that becomes a sort of research that maybe would be a lot easier in my native tongue than it would be in English. It's difficult to really explain why it is such a different thing if I were to do research on ships, for example, in Swedish versus English. It has to do with whether or not I have heard anyone have conversations about this in the different languages, and since I've heard more Swedish spoken just generally in my life than I've heard English, there's a bigger chance that I've heard someone discuss this subject in Swedish, and so when I read these terms that I'm looking up, I can sort of remember and I can understand in a deeper way how they're meant to be used than I can in English, which I'm not exposed to quite as much. I don't know if that makes sense. Question number 6. If your work is not written in English, would you like it to be translated? The answer is yes, and the answer is actually yes in both directions. The things that I have written in English, I would very much like to be translated into Swedish, and vice versa. Now, I am a translator myself, so especially anything that I've written in English, I feel more than confident translating into Swedish. Anything I've written in Swedish, I may or may not feel confident translating into English for the reasons that I've just talked about. Now, for most of my stories, I am going to be confident enough to write them in both languages, but there are some, my middle grade, for example, I don't think I could write that in English. Regardless, the answer is yes. I would very much like to see my work, all of my work, translated into as many languages as possible. Question number 7. What is the best part of being part of authortube? You can answer in your native language and add subtitles if you want. So I'm gonna do that. Jag tycker det är jättekul att prata med andra som skriver och dela idéer och tankar och erfarenheter och så. Och jag har träffat jättemånga härliga människor på authortube och det har varit jättekul att få följa deras resor och lära mig av dem och förhoppningsvis bidra till att de också har fått vidga sina vyer lite grann. Wow, I am not used to speaking Swedish to the camera. That was super weird. Question number 8. Do you watch other international authortubers? Shout them out. Of course, I watch Matilda, my wife, over at the Nerdy Book Nerd, and I do also watch Marine, who tagged me in this. Apart from that, however, I don't think I watch anyone who is still making videos. I have watched a few that seem to no longer make videos, which is very sad, but I did look through my subscription box and I didn't find any international authortuber who had made videos for a while. Or I maybe do watch some that I've never mentioned that English isn't their first language, in which case I had no idea anyway. So number 9 is tag fellow international writers, and I know that Matilda is already tagged, and of course Marine tagged me in this, so I have no one to tag, but please let me know down in the comments if you are an international authortuber, and do this tag if you want to. Or even if you don't want to do this tag, please let me know, because I want to follow more international authortubers. With that, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.